coverage of the international manhunt for alleged killer Alex Magnotta. Last night on the program here, we spoke to Toronto Sun columnist Joe Warmington. Joe had interviewed Magnotta in 2007 after Magnotta had been linked romantically with Karla Homolka. Joe said it was one of the spookiest interviews he'd ever had. Well, our next guest is also a columnist, and he too had an interview with Magnotta just 6 months ago and under decidedly more chilling circumstances. Alex West is a columnist for the British tabloid The Sun. It's no relation to Sun News Network or The Sun's here in Canada. And last December, Alex was probing those awful videos posted online in which someone was strangling kittens and feeding them to pythons. That someone was widely believed to be Magnotta. Alex West, you tracked him down to a shabby pub in northern London. What did you make of him?
Of course, the first impression was that it seemed very incongruous that he was staying at this hotel. The image he had presented himself online was that he had all the trappings of wealth of an attractive, successful young model, pictured himself in exotic locations in a convertible, and the actual reality was that he was staying in a cheap B&B in a not very salubrious part of town. So immediately, it didn't seem to add up. It was very, very strange. When I talked to him, he seemed to still be wearing foundation makeup and blue eyeshadow, and he seemed anxious that we were questioning, yet at the same time, perversely, he seemed to enjoy the attention that he was getting from us being there. And he had a strange, cold, emotionless way of talking to us. He wasn't giving anything away, yet he seemed to know what we were talking about. And he was looking through, his eyes were sort of almost squinting as he sort of seemed to sort of try and cut through the questioning. And as I say, it seems to show no emotion, and I just got a sort of a feeling, a perturbing feeling that he was sort of cold and non-empathetic. You know, what was he doing there? Why had he come to our attention? Why it seems he wanted us to be there, yet he wasn't in any way talking to us or giving us any information. It was a very cold, almost calculating appearance from him, if you like.
So after that meeting with him, he sent you some correspondence, which you reported on today. Tell us about that email you received from Magnotta. Yeah, so
after we met with him, we left. We both felt that he was a very, very strange and weird individual. And then 2 days later, we had an email that we don't know who the author is, and we still don't know who it is, but we believe it may be from Alex Magnotta because it referred to stuff that. He referred to the meeting with some journalists, which he had, and it talks about the cat videos. And in that email, he disturbingly, it was a nasty, macabre, and dark email in which he used nasty, profane language, and he suggested that although he said that next time it wouldn't just be animals. So he left that, rather disturbing thought that he could go on and do something more than that. And the email was personal, and it was vile, and it left you feeing very concerned enough for us to take that email to the police. And say to them that we thought this person should be investigated.
So you notified police about him then, and we have heard from others here in North America who also tried to warn police about Magnotta at various times over the last couple of years. In your case, what, if anything, did the police do?
Well, I think that's a question you need to ask the police about. As far as I'm aware, I told them all the information, or gave them all the information we had, gave them a dossier of information regarding why we thought a man named Alex Magnotta was connected to the cat killing videos, and said that we thought the email which we'd been sent, the very vile email, was also connected to him. And we gave all that information to police, and we left it with them, as you do. After a few days of maybe feeling all that was rather nasty, and it left you feeling a bit anxious. After a few days, those feelings passed, and you forget about it. And then for it to come around 6 months later and find out the man that you had met in that position is now wanted for such a horrific crime does give you a sick feeling in your stomach to a certain extent. If he is guilty for the things that he wanted for, and we must be very careful not to prejudge that. Then it is very disturbing that he set out his plan. It's just so boldly in black and white, and then apparently carried it out.
Chilling. Well, Alex West of the UK tabloid The Sun, thank you for staying up late and sharing that with us.
Not at all. Thank you.
Our Sun News contributor John Robson has written his weekend commentary on the Magnotta case, and for a preview, he joins me now. And John, this is a case, I find these cases, as horrifying as they are, they're so sad. You feel sad for the victim, obviously, and sad in a pathetic kind of way for the apparent perpetrator, this Alex Magnotta. What do you think about it?
Well, yeah, they're dreadful cases, and in some way it's sad for all mankind to recognize the kind of depravity that people are capable of. It's obviously the most horrible for the victim, terrible for his family. The person who opened the package, obviously, very unpleasant exposure to the whole incident. One thing that does strike me about it, though, when the thing first happened, and severed foot was sent to Conservative Party headquarters, and part of the thought everybody had to have, was this a threat to conservative politicians? Yes. And I don't mean because an insane person can threaten a politician. Part of a politician's life is you get these weird messages. Was it part of a systematic kind of intimidation? And it's not. And that's a relief, and feel a certain sense of thankfulness that Canada is not the kind of place where a package like this is a real credible, rational threat. You think about Mexico and its trouble with drug cartels. You think about the turmoil in West Africa. We've just seen this 50-year sentence given to a former president of Liberia, and his predecessor was mutilated, paraded around naked, and then murdered. And in a setting like that, if a political party gets a severed body part, it means you and your family will be next if you don't do what we say. Thank goodness Canada's not like that. And even, the most famous tabloid headline virtually in all history, New York Post in 1983, headless body in topless bar, describing a killing as ghastly as this one that took place in New York City, but that seemed to people to symbolize the anarchy that was overtaking New York in those days. It since mercifully has been turned around. A feeling that this is the way society is going. Here, it's a terrible insight into the awful things humans can do. And again, for those directly concerned, obviously a terrible thing, but not, and this is something we can be grateful for, not indicative of the general state of our society or of our politics.
You think even closer to home, in American politics, right after 9/11, the mailing of the white powder to federal government officials, more recently the shooting of the Arizona congressman. I mean, there's still political violence to a degree in the United States. It's not as common, but it's still common. But you're quite right, in Canada, I'm trying to recall, famous shooting of Darcy McGee would be the most serious, and the FLQ
killing
crisis,
of Pierre Laporte
would be the most serious crises we've faced in this regard.
Britain's had one prime minister assassinated, and that was by somebody who was not in their right mind. And again, the Arizona congresswoman was shot by a lunatic, not by somebody systematically trying to intimidate politicians. I mean, American politicians may fear the random killer, but again, you look at the United States and assassinations of politicians. William McKinley, 1901, was shot by an anarchist, though one of questionable sanity. But since then, they have not had what one might call a rational political assassination. Lincoln was shot by somebody upset about the Civil War. And though, of course, we deplore this motive, you understand it. But Kennedy was shot by a guy who was just crazy. And thank heavens we don't have dozens of bodies dumped beside highways by a drug cartel saying not only can we kill our opponents, we can drive around with their bodies and arrange them theatrically and nothing will happen to us.
We were talking about this last night. This is one of the most difficult things about a case like this, is trying to figure out the moral meaning of the act. How does this psychopath, does they have a moral center so that rational people, let's assume we're rational people, we can fit it into our understanding of reality? And I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to do this with this one.
Well, not much. The one thing you think is this is a person who throughout the course of their life had choices to do something worse or something better, to get themselves under control or to give free rein to their darker impulses. And it seems that at every point they took the wrong choice. And even if this person had a more difficult life and faced weirder kind of choices, the moral is still there. If you let this go, one day you'll arrive somewhere terrible. You must control yourself. You must understand that everything inside you is not good, and you must stop those things that are bad. And you must, I also think, don't turn a blind eye when it seems to be happening around you. Don't pretend everything is equally good, because some people's choices are terrible choices. And so there's a glimpse into the human heart and what can go wrong. And that's an awful thing. And again, our sympathies to the family of the victim. Obviously, the victim's life ended in a terrible way. Those people opening the package, the Conservative Party thinking, oh, is this aimed at us, and so on. But also just this warning about what lurks in the hearts of men if we do not take good care of our moral condition.
John Robson, Sun News contributor. Look forward to reading your piece in the weekend.